We want to get right to that major breaking news overnight at 12:54 a.m. President Trump announced that both he and First Lady Melania Trump have tested positive for COVID-19. The stunning development raises significant questions about the president's health, the stability of the country, our standing in the world, and the state of the race for the White House just 32 days before the final votes. We will cover it all this morning, and we begin by wishing the president and the First Lady a speedy and full recovery.
We certainly do, and with that, we want to show you a live look right now at the White House, where the president and First Lady are in isolation at this moment. And there are so many big questions this morning after the president's jam-packed schedule this week. We want to know who else in the White House inner circle could potentially be infected. And what does this do to the campaign? The safety of holding the future debates is now in question, and all of this comes at a time when the president has faced repeated questions about whether he and the White House have been doing enough to protect against the virus, and now just how truthful he has been about the seriousness of this pandemic.
Also, we have some said big questions there are about the president's health, his age, and his weight, both considered significant risk factors. Dr. Jen Ashton and Dr. Jha are both here this morning to help guide us through.
The White House doctor put out a statement overnight saying that the president and the First Lady are doing, quote, well, but no word yet this morning on whether the 74-year-old commander-in-chief is experiencing any COVID-related symptoms. And of course, all of this comes as COVID cases are surging across the country. Our chief White House correspondent, John Carl, starts us off. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. With the first family isolating in the White House, we are awaiting details about the president's condition, but this much is already clear. Everything is on hold. Overnight, a worst-case scenario for the White House. A little before 1 a.m., President Trump tweeted, "Tonight, the First Lady and I tested positive for COVID-19. We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together." The president's physician released a statement saying both were, quote, well at this time, without revealing if they were experiencing any symptoms, adding they plan to remain at home within the White House during their convalescence. And rest assured, I expect the president to continue carrying out his duties without disruption while recovering. The First Lady later tweeted, "We are feeling good." And the president, in a phone interview earlier in the night, as he said he was awaiting the results of their tests, first raised the possibility that he could have the virus.
Whether we quarantine or whether we have it, I don't know.
For months, the president has tried to downplay the pandemic. But at 74, his age puts him at higher risk of serious complications from the virus, which has already claimed more than 207,000 American lives, making this one of the gravest threats to a president's health in decades. The president's announcement came just hours after news broke that Hope Hicks, one of his closest aides, has also tested positive for COVID-19. Sources tell ABC News she is experiencing symptoms. Hicks traveled with the president to the debate in Cleveland, and the next day she was seen boarding Marine One without a mask for the president's trip to Minnesota, creating plenty of opportunity for exposure.
I spent a lot of time with Hope, and so does the First Lady, and she's tremendous. I was a little surprised, but she's a very warm person. She has a hard time when soldiers and law enforcement comes up to her. You know, she wants to treat them great, not say, stay away, I can't get near you. It's a very, very tough disease.
An almost incalculable number of people, from staffers to high-ranking Washington officials, are now potentially at risk of developing the virus. The vice president, senior White House advisors, including Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, and several Republican members of Congress, have all crossed paths with the president in recent days. And while the candidates kept their distance during Tuesday's debate, there are concerns Joe Biden could have been exposed as well. Although Hicks started experiencing symptoms Wednesday night and tested positive for the virus early Thursday, President Trump charged ahead with his plans, holding a fundraiser at his club in New Jersey hours later, spreading the risk beyond Washington. The White House has taken precious few precautions to avoid the virus. The president and his top advisors are almost never seen wearing masks. During the debate, President Trump even mocked Joe Biden for frequently using face coverings in public.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
The president has also maintained a jam-packed schedule, holding many crowded events with few safety measures.
Hello, Duluth. Thank you.
The White House has scrapped a rally in Florida that was planned for later tonight. And with just over a month before Election Day, the presidential campaign, including the next debate, are shrouded in a new cloud of uncertainty, with President Trump desperate to close the wide gap in the polls between Biden and himself, now sidelined from the campaign trail during this critical closing stretch. Beyond his health, the president's diagnosis is a crushing blow to his effort to convince Americans that the worst of the pandemic is behind them, a claim he repeated via video at New York's Al Smith dinner just last night.
I just want to say that the end of the pandemic is in sight.
The president has repeatedly said he feels no vulnerability to the virus, insisting that since everyone in close proximity to him is frequently tested, he is safe. This extraordinary turn of events proves that even with all the resources afforded to the President of the United States, don't guarantee protection from a virus that the President acknowledged as the most difficult challenge of his presidency at ABC's town hall last month.
What did you learn from it?
I learned that life is very fragile. I knew people that were powerful people, strong people, good people, and they got knocked out by this and died. 6 people. It was 5 until about 2 weeks ago. Now it's 6. But I've learned that life is very fragile because these were strong people, and all of a sudden they were dead. They were gone.
And we have just heard from the Vice President's press office that the Vice President has tested negative for coronavirus. Also, we have heard that Barron Trump has tested negative, as well as Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner. George?
Then you get to all the contacts they've had as well. John, you cover the White House every single day. What more can you tell us about what you've seen up close about how they handle the virus?
George, when I go into the White House, you see signs as you enter telling you must socially distance, stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask, big sign when you enter the briefing room. But I've got to tell you, I have observed over and over again officials in that White House not socially distancing. We saw just at the announcement of his choice for the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett, a big crowded event in the Rose Garden, people shoulder to shoulder, almost nobody wearing masks. People are tested, but they do not practice social distancing in that White House.
Okay, John, thanks. I know you'll be on point all morning. Of course, Cecilia, you're at the White House so often as well. It's your beat.
Well, and our viewers probably noticed that John wasn't directly in front of the White House, and that's partly because our team has decided that it wasn't safe there for us to be there on a regular basis. We go in for the briefings. We go in when we have to question the president in person. But exactly to John's point, we were seeing people without masks regularly. We were seeing people stopping to not socially distancing. They stopped taking temperatures for people who were regular visitors to the White House. It just frankly got to the point where our team made the call that it wasn't safe for us to be there.
Except if you're going to the Oval Office, you do get that test.
Then you get a test if you are directly in contact and up close with the president. But he does come into the briefings with reporters, and not everyone is in that small room is tested.